upside down. I'm going off the grid. I'm looking to the future. I'm going to attempt to be a living, breathing example of how to live and be happy living as an animal, a human, in love, joy, and freedom. I look at the system I live in, how entrenched this world is in the old age of oil and natural resources, us and them, man against nature. And I realize that I'm never going to figure out how to live if I don't unplug from the system for a while. I'm not actually running away. I don't want to leave you all, and I love you all more than anything, but I'm going off because I believe, and I hold on to a thread of hope, that humankind can live in harmony with his home and his brothers and sisters, plants, animals, water, and air. I'm not escaping to the past, I'm exploring the future. And if that isn't worth doing, I don't really know what is. I am, as I turn 18, just now attempting to find my place in the world. What is the true cause of happiness? How do I live simply and close to nature? What is the role of music, which I've made my life up until now and the rest of my life? How do I best benefit the world around me? As I stand here, you witness someone taking his first shaky steps out of the nest. I don't really know what my true purpose is, but I'll be exploring for a while. Here are the facts. I was born on October 19th, 1992, to ex-hippie deadhead parents living in a chicken coop in Petaluma, California. I lived in California, that's kind of an exaggeration. It was converted. I lived in California with my parents until I was 3, and then moved to France for a year, where my little brother was born. Then we moved back to the States and found our home in Portland, Oregon. When I was 5, my parents brought me to Magic Garden Preschool. The other kids and I spent every day at Magic Garden, eating delicious homemade food and playing in the forest behind the school. That was our stage for every story we made up, every mud pie we crafted, every fort we built or pouch we sewed. I don't exactly know when kids start not liking mud, but when that happens, they're on their way to becoming boring adults. 6 of the Magic Garden families were best friends by the time we were too old for preschool. Our parents decided that the community we had at Magic Garden was something too special to give up. So we stayed together. There are a dozen of us now, ranging in age from 14 to 23, and we still go camping every year and throw an annual New Year's party where we gather to play music and eat good food and catch up. We call ourselves the Wilds. It's kind of a dorky name, but I don't really care. The moms call themselves the Wild Women, which the name came from, and the kids call themselves the Wild Kids. We've never really come up with the right name for the dads, although Wild Token Breeders has been used from time to time. At any rate, the Wilds have been my tribe for 13 years now, that core group of friends who all love nature. And I know that no matter how much we change, no matter what kind of people we become, we'll always love each other. And I think that's really important. It was with the Wilds that I had my first experience with Trackers Northwest. Oh yeah, this is where I'm supposed to get technology together and stuff. So, can you go to the computer source? Okay. Work on this continuity thing. Go! Go! Okay. That one? Tracker slideshow. What? Here. This is why I left 7 extra minutes. Because I am bad at technology. Okay. Those are the Wilds. During that week, I was introduced to a way of being in nature I'd never experienced before, and would change the course of my life. I wrote a story about my experience, and though I've changed since then, the original inspiration and passion remains strong. It goes kind of like this. I was a little different back then. Increasingly dissatisfied with bland fluorescent lights and cheap, bad food, he decided to go into the wild. His mother signed him up for a summer camp with many old friends through Trackers Northwest program. He was ready to go, eager and excited for new things to come. As they drove to the area of the Trackers camp, They passed through little logging towns with old, abandoned skeletons of buildings. The boy stared out the window. What a strange setting for a wilderness camp, he thought. The car reached a dusty gravel road, leading up a hill, through dense green foliage, until the car reached a field. Lugging his burdens out of the car, tent, clothing, food, knife, pillow, sleeping bag, and dumping them on a pile alongside his friends, he met two people who would soon play a big part in his life. The woman looked about 30, the man the same. They both wore smiles on their faces, his all-consuming, wrinkling at his eyes, and hers quieter, more reserved. The car that brought him drove away, and the boy was left parentless with his friends and those two people who he had just met, Tony and Lisa. Yeah. Hey, do you guys want to throw knives? An uncommon question, to say the least, but not preposterous and really fun for anyone my age, or now. The boy shrugged a yes. That's not a knife, it's a rabbit stick. After their gear was set up and sleeping places decided, the group was taken to a small clearing in the woods. Sorry about that. Where they were instructed how to make a debris hut, piling it with mounds of underbrush for warmth. They were taught scout games, a crucial part of tracking animals, and although lighthearted, the games were designed to train the boy to become a tracker, to be one with nature. And as he practiced fox walking and wide-angle vision, he felt that this was the beginning of something much greater than himself, the ground he walked on, or anything in this world he had yet experienced. They were led into the forest. Across the meadow they trudged, heads down, shuffling. Lisa suggested they try fox walking in wide-angle vision. Their postures straightened. Overhead a hawk flew, watching over the group. They reached the forest, ducking under a barbed wire fence. They disappeared among the green and found themselves in a different world. Walking silently and with heightened senses, the boy was aware of every step and decided to walk more lightly to silence the deafening thud of his shoes on the earth. They walked for a long time until they reached a forest graveyard. It was light here, stumps scattered everywhere like bodies in an abandoned battlefield. And suddenly, he hated all mankind for doing something so terrible to something so much wiser and greater than they were. The boy and the group walked on. They came upon a doomed creek which bubbled and ran through the woods, a shimmering waterfall tumbling down the rock face into a deep pool, wide enough to swim in. It was there that the boy received his role. Lisa painted each of their faces in a unique pattern reflecting their unique role in life. The boy stepped up to receive his, and Lisa painted a spiral on each cheek and told him that he was to pass on the culture and traditions of old to a new generation and culture, to pass them on so they are not forgotten. As the group fox walked back to camp, he felt renewed with a sense of purpose in life. At dinner time, go. Lisa and Tony led the Thanksgiving address, a way of giving thanks to all that is in our lives. That night, after they had eaten and were sitting around the fire, Tony and Lisa told stories. Later, the group lay under the sky, with the sound of crickets and creatures of the night surrounding them, as they contemplated the next day and slowly drifted off to sleep. And you can turn the projector to like a different source, off-ish, something, so it's not showing that picture. Thank you. Since that initial experience with trackers, I've spent a lot of time with them, being in nature, learning, listening, sharpening my awareness and my place in the natural world. This is kind of how it feels, a little bit. As I hide from my friends, trying to find me among the ferns, I sit still and try to shift my mentality to that of a deer or a fox or something simply not human. As I do this, I breathe and my vision gets wider and wider. My body starts to move when the wind blows the leaves. My movements slow down and become more fluid. And at a certain point, I see the trees and smell the soil and the wet leaves, but I'm a part of it now, as it is part of me. All that is left is the soil, as my body becomes the earth, and my breath becomes the wind. It is that shift from us and them to simply being a part of my environment that is the unifying factor and a large reason that I come back to trackers time and time again. Near the end of junior year, I started talking with my parents about the possibility of doing a gap year instead of going right to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't really want to spend another year in classrooms floundering around for something to do. I knew trackers offered an immersion program, so I started talking to Tony Dice and the other trackers instructors. Tony told me that, for the first time, trackers was planning a program way beyond the scope of anything they had ever done before, and that they were going to run what was essentially a self-sufficient wilderness village, with teachers mentoring students like me the whole time. The more he described the experience, the more convinced I became that the program was exactly what I want to do. The residential immersion program, or the village, would be led by 2 main instructors and 14 or so students who would be learning how to entirely live off the land. On an 80-acre farm in Cedar Forest in Port Orford on the southern coast of Oregon, we would be learning what it means to hunt, gather, grow, and make everything we need to live. It would include intensive instruction every weekend and during the week on skills like permaculture farming, tracking, blacksmithing, traditional trades, and wild food identification. We would learn how to work with our hands, how to craft things that were both highly functional and beautiful in their functionality. We would learn how to make skin-on-frame boats, how to make our own clothes, and the basics of natural building, which are now being implemented in more eco-conscious homes. We would be living in huts and shelters we built, tracking, killing, skinning, and using all the parts of the animals for food and materials, gathering mushrooms and plants, keeping livestock, and farming on a daily basis. In the long term, we would be trying to work the land in a way that we leave it better than when we arrived. Here's what I found out yesterday. There were 9 people in this year-round program. 3 dropped out. They're doing the summer, but they're not doing during the year. So everything basically fell apart. Not everything, just 3/4 of everything. I was kind of shocked and kind of like surprisingly optimistic. I guess it's kind of a lesson in uncertainty. And I gotta realize that everything falls apart. Things just break without noticing. Shit happens, basically. So I guess I have a lot more thinking to do. I'm gonna be going during the summer, but I have a lot of freedom to decide what I'm gonna do during winter, fall, and spring. Anyway. So there's this other paragraph that I wrote that's kind of not meaningful right now. But there is, to some extent, as I wrote, a very tangible quality of what the hell am I getting myself into. After all, I'm just a kid from the suburbs who has lived a city-bound life for most of his existence. However, I've spent weeks at a time with trackers, learning and adventuring and boating and making our own food and sleeping under the stars. So I have at least a vague idea of what it is going to be like. I also know that if I don't do it now, it will be much harder to set the time aside later. So this is my chance. This is still applicable, but it's a little different, as you can see. Moving on.